All right, let's go through a couple things I've been saving up this week and just didn't really have time for until today. As many of you know, we've been following the supposed bankruptcy of InfoWars conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, where he says they don't really have any money, but then they got two $1 million Bitcoin donations, and now they've got $5 million, but they still don't have enough money to pay any of the Sandy Hook parents in the settlement that they filed and won against Alex Jones for defamation. It's all a complete and total mess. Alex Jones seemed to almost have like a medical event, almost like stroking out or having a cardiac event during his show, where he seemed to be saying they are in a war. I don't know if they is InfoWars or the American right wing or who, they are in a war. And the only way to win the war is for you to buy his products, including his supplements, and to send him money. This is really full-on stuff. It's simultaneously hilarious, but also extraordinarily weird.
And supporting our guest, because everybody we have on is fighting with everything they've got.
Whoa.
This is a war against you and your family of inflation and collapse.
It's really like a try-decaf type of moment here.
And they know everybody's going to wake up in the midst of it. That's why they want to silence the leaders, because they think they can then defeat you. So when you keep us in the fight, you keep yourself in the fight, and this is life and death.
Right.
So go to InfoWarsStore.com and get amazing products and sign up for auto ship and continue support. Make a donation at the top and go to the Stone Defense Fund and make a donation to him, because he's a gladiator and a champion.
And now they have supplements up on the screen, energy supplements and stuff like that.
Fight, and if you don't support us, you're helping the enemy. And I'm not bitching at listeners. I'm telling you, this is all-out war. Roger?
Well, Alex, I think you're absolutely right about.
Yeah, Alex Jones agrees with that. Globalist, internationalist, Trotskyite socialists, unlike Obama, Trudeau, Macron, and the rest of these Zio beasts. That's my Alex Jones impression from last year. This is absolutely hilarious, but also we really need to make sure that everybody following the bankruptcy proceedings is aware of what's going on here. You know, this whole, like, we will only win this moral war if you buy my supplements and contribute to my personal finances, which I claim I don't even have because I said I'm bankrupt. It's beyond parody at this point in time. And there is, you know, even though Alex Jones does kowtow to religion to some degree, but it's not as overtly a religious show as some others. The supplement stuff, it's starting to remind me of those evangelical TV shows that sell the food storage, the buckets of food. This is Jim Bakker offering buckets, and it's basically like a less manic Alex Jones.
This is the most unique survival food. This is 52 servings.
Right.
Turkey feast.
Oof.
Emergency food supply.
That's right.
And this food is 30-year shelf life food. It even has pumpkin.
By the way, one of the things I love is that he says it has a 30-year shelf life, but at the bottom of the screen it says it has a 20-year shelf life. It's like, wait, so does it last 20 years or 30 years?
Pumpkin pie mousse for dessert.
It does. We made it the other day. It's super delicious, actually.
I love pumpkin pie.
Pumpkin pie mousse. I've never even heard of that.
It has honey wheat rolls, green bean casserole, like a lot of you make.
I have to tell you, the green bean casserole and the pumpkin pie mousse look basically the same.
Turkey gravy, seasoned stuffing, freeze-dried turkey, real turkey.
The freeze-dried turkey does look like dog food.
Mashed potatoes. This, for your survival food, this is to have.
Isn't that the best? The apocalypse is coming. We are about to be raptured, but you'll be able to enjoy a completely typical Thanksgiving dinner thanks to my turkey feast survival food bucket. It's the same thing as with the Alex Jones segment, right? We're in a war here, and they're trying to silence you, and they're trying to silence me, and the way to fight it is by buying supplements on my website. It's like a stupidity test. I saw a cartoon with a vending machine, and the vending machine said, if you think the election was rigged, insert $100. And it's sort of the same stupidity. If you think Alex Jones, it's a stupidity test. If you think buying Alex Jones supplements will save America, then just send him money. And if you pass the test, you get to keep your money. It's really a tragedy of education that people fall for this stuff in the United States to the tune of millions of dollars. And as far as the bankruptcy proceedings with Alex Jones, hopefully they're paying attention to everything that's happening with his business. I want to do a short segment on Don Jr. and Maria Bartiromo. Maria Bartiromo has become one of the biggest Trump family brown nosers, really in the world, but in particular on Fox News. And she had a wild interview. And I'm not making any speculative claims about Don Jr.'s possible upper use. I'm just not going to do that on this show. I'm just going to, when I say he seems sped up, I just mean it seems like the videos of him talking are sped up. And Donald Trump Jr. has now co-founded something called MXM News. I have no idea what it is. It's very uninteresting to me, but it's like they've got Rumble, they've got Truth Social, now it's MXM News. Who can even keep track of all these different things? And he showed up and he is talking about panic, about free speech and different things. These interviews just go nowhere.
That the conservatives for a decade now. Like, these people are living in a bubble. They're not looking for a level playing field, Maria. They're looking for an advantage. They were always thrilled when they have that advantage, as though they don't have enough advantages already, all right? They control the mainstream media, $1 trillion enterprise. They have basically...
I love when they go on Fox and slam the mainstream media as if Fox News isn't part of the same corporate media apparatus that they criticize.
All of big tech, another $1 trillion enterprise. They had all of social media, again, until you came up with Truth Social, and then Elon Musk said, hey, how about some free speech on Twitter as well? Oh, my God. You know, the outrage and the panic, and you see it, and that's why you see the leak about the Supreme Court. They need something, and they have nothing to motivate their people.
Now, remember, we still don't know who did the Supreme Court leak, but it's increasingly looking like the best hypotheses are that it was a right-winger who did the leak, but that's just not convenient for them.
American people are awake to it. They're starting to see what's real.
They're awake. It almost sounds like they're woke.
What happened to the algorithms the second the Musk thing was announced. They saw the engagement that they're getting on social, and they realized that they've been in a rigged game for very long. They see it, and you can no longer hide it, Maria.
And now the crazy thing about this appearance, other than the fact that everything that he says doesn't make any sense, is he was so hopped up on, let's call it energy, that he ranted for several minutes to the point where Maria Bartiromo tried to interrupt him and isn't even able to.
Disinformation until it wasn't. Once they got what they wanted, the truth no longer mattered, so now they can say it's true. They see the disaster that Biden's administration is, so now they're saying, hey, we'll throw him under the bus. Let's let this be true now. So check out MXM News, because those stories existed, but the powers that be made sure that people never actually saw them. And so we have to make sure that people have access to this kind of information. And so whether it's Truth Social, whether it's MXM News, we are pushing back, and people are finally awake.
She has no ability to actually take control of the interview. And this MXM News thing, if you check it out, it says mainstream news without the mainstream bias. And it's available, I guess it's an app of some kind that lets you cut through the noise. And it's curated with no censorship. Now, I don't know how many people understand that, but it's very hard to say something is curated with no censorship. I mean, the criticism that they have of the Facebook and Twitter and et cetera algorithms are it's being curated in a way we don't like. They will often say if Twitter and Facebook weren't censored, they would just be chronological messages from everybody you follow. The algorithm that curates is a form of censorship, and they're promoting MXM News as being curated, but without any censorship. It makes as little sense as it sounds like it makes. Monday, Memorial Day, we will be doing our midterm membership bonanza. We will be blowing out memberships at a massive discount. Everybody on my team is saying, David, sir, please don't do it. Don't do it. It's too much of a discount. And I am telling them I'm doing it on Memorial Day. You'll all be sleeping and I'll be giving out discounted memberships. If you want to be notified of this great discount and you want to sign up on Monday, Memorial Day, just get on our newsletter at davidpakman.com. We'll take a quick break and be right back. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time, and plenty of other awesome membership perks, go to joinpacman.com and use the coupon code BETTER21 for a huge discount. Joinpacman.com. The David Pakman Show is, of course, a community-supported program. You can sign up at joinpacman.com and instantly get access to the award-winning and world-famous bonus show. You can sign up at joinpacman.com and you can use the coupon code OBAMNA for a discount. OBAMNA. Very important stuff at joinpacman.com. Let's speak to some people in the audience, right? I mean, I think that makes absolute and perfect sense. You can join the discussion on our Discord at davidpakman.com/Discord. We use the waiting lobby to indicate that you would like to speak to me. And of course, do not send me any direct messages. We have a system. Get in the waiting lobby. If you send me direct messages saying, David, please put me on, unfortunately, I have to mute you and I will never hear from you again. That's the way it works. Let's go first to our friend Jen in Providence. Jen, great to have you back on.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
All right, great. So, living in a liberal area like New England, a lot of people have that peace of mind thinking, as far as the abortion rights, they're never going to come for us. We're going to be safe up here. But do you think it really is only a matter of time until they just really try to make it federal and try to creep up? I mean, Rhode Island is even almost purple. It's not solid blue like Massachusetts is.
Right.
Do you think we're in any danger in the future?
I think it would be a bad idea to assume that they're never coming for abortion with a federal abortion ban. In fact, there's already people talking about it. There's already people saying, hey, listen, if we can get rid of Roe v. Wade, maybe a total ban would actually be a possibility. So I think to your point, Jen, it would be at one's own peril to put our guard down and to say, well, as long as we just lobby for it to remain legal within the states in which we live, we don't have to worry about it. That seems extremely dangerous and naive to me. Now, I'm not saying they will get a federal abortion ban necessarily anytime soon, but we don't have to wonder whether they're thinking about it. They're telling us that they're thinking about it.
Yeah. And what's interesting about the design of Providence, too, we get to see the effects of if they did go through with this ban. On one street, there is a Planned Parenthood, a homeless shelter, and Department of Human Services. So it's kind of showing that triad of what happens if these women are meant to have kids that they can't afford.
Yeah.
But none of these people who are screaming pro-life are going to, the homeless shelter and donating. And they're the same ones that get mad when they have to go by like the food stamp and the welfare office.
Absolutely. It is incredible. And as I've said before, a lot of the very same people who want to make it impossible or illegal to get an abortion are unwilling to say, well, we should expand and codify the child tax credit at a higher level. We should provide contraception, comprehensive sex education, all of these different things. Not only are they hypocrites, but they're dangerous hypocrites.
Exactly. All right. Well, I thank you so much. I'll let you get to everybody else.
All right. Jen from Providence. Look, did you see how other than that one audio glitch, she gets right to the question. She knows other people are waiting. What a great call. Really a fantastic phone call. Let's go to David from Colorado. David, you're on the air next.
Hey, David, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Great. I wanted to talk quickly about democratic ideals. Given that so many Supreme Court justices have been appointed by presidents that have not won the popular vote.
Correct.
Do you support the Supreme Court still as an institution? Do you believe it has a rightful place in our democracy?
I believe it has a rightful place in our democracy, but we need to be confident in it. And we did a story on the Wednesday show about how confidence in the Supreme Court has collapsed. And it's even worse than you're pointing out. So David correctly points out, right now, 5 of the 9 justices were nominated to the court by presidents who lost the popular vote. So it was Roberts and Alito by Bush, and then Gorsuch, Coney Barrett, and Kavanaugh by Trump. That's 5 of the 9 justices were chosen by presidents where more people voted for their opponents. But it's even worse than that, David. In addition to that, One of them quite literally should have been Barack Obama's selection. Gorsuch should have actually been Obama's nomination of Merrick Garland. Mitch McConnell got in the way of that. But then it's even worse than that, not to really depress you today, David, but also the completely anti-democratic Senate, where Wyoming gets 2 senators and California gets 2 senators, even though California has 30-something million people and Wyoming has not even 1 million people. They are the ones who voted to confirm these people. So it's a completely anti-democratic process. And I understand why there's very little confidence in the court right now. But if we could make its makeup more legitimate as an institution, I do still think that having a Supreme Court is an important thing.
Right. And I'm totally with you in terms of the anti-democratic institutions within our system between the Electoral College and Senate. I'm actually from Wyoming.
Okay.
And I've moved since to
no offense to Wyoming, but
higher,
listen, why do you guys have 2 senators,
Yeah, no, it's completely ridiculous in my opinion. But do you have any specific reforms in mind? Something that was talked about during the 2020 campaign by Pete Buttigieg was a possible makeup in which maybe 5 justices are appointed by the conservative nominee, or rather conservative presidential candidates, 5 are nominated by the liberal presidential candidates, and then the remaining 5 are nominated by the 10 seated justices. Do you have anything like that in mind, or any other systems?
I am open to a lot of reforms. One idea that is, I think, similar to what you're suggesting, but not exactly it, is that you always have a 5-4 court, and it's just whoever's in power in the White House gets the 5 rather than the 4. That's one idea that I've seen floated. Term limits is another. Obviously, I would love it if the president's choosing the justices won the popular vote and we could actually say they actually were reflective of the will of the people, but that requires getting rid of the Electoral College. The other aspect to this is there can't be, if you're president, I think we have to just set a line. And even if you have a week left and you nominate someone, I think that they need to get a confirmation hearing. I don't think you can even, it shouldn't be an option for Mitch McConnell and Republicans to do what they did.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Final question on Roe. Do you think this could be a straw that broke the camel's back in terms of Democrats winning back a supermajority?
We've talked about that. I don't know yet. I think that this will probably inspire some turnout for Democrats in November, but I don't know about a supermajority. That seems like a bit of a stretch.
Totally get that.
I think not losing would be, I think not losing by as much would be like probably the best they can do.
Yeah. We'll see what happens in November, I suppose.
Absolutely.
I'll go ahead and let you get to everyone
David
else.
from Colorado, thank you so much for the call. Let's go next to Alan from South Africa. Alan, welcome.
Hey, obligatory, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Great. So my question is, what issues do you think Joe Biden can address, and in what ways to maybe save his presidency at this point?
So student loan forgiveness would be a big deal. Being seen as successfully winding down Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Not that it's his job to figure it out, but if he could credibly negotiate an off-ramp for Russia, I think that would help him. Cannabis decriminalization, I think, would probably help him as well. We have to be realistic because we're now under 6 months to these elections. And what can be done in that amount of time? I don't think there's any way in hell that he gets immigration reform done. I don't think he gets taxes done. I don't think he gets healthcare. So I'm just thinking like what could realistically happen? And I think that some student loan forgiveness could, somewhat of a solution in Russia, Ukraine, maybe. And if he was determined, maybe something on cannabis, but he doesn't seem super interested in that.
Yeah, I think I agree there. And the other thing I wanted to ask was, would you consider covering more international news? I know you can't cover everything. It would be impossible. But there's so much going on in the world. Like, for example, I don't know if you covered this, actually, the election in Philippines. It's a lot of things that I know your audience is quite international.
Yeah.
Would you consider, covering some topics that are going on in the world? I mean, apart from obviously the Ukrainian-Russian conflict.
So we did cover the Philippines election. Actually, it was on the bonus show, the award-winning, world-famous bonus show that Alex Jones doesn't like. We didn't cover it on the broadcast show. I'm always willing to do international stories. It's just they tend not to do well. They get very little interest, reaction, engagement, or views. And at a certain point, we're not just picking stuff based on views, but if we do something and there just seems to be very little interest, it does make me question whether it's the right thing to be covering,
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Great. Well, thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Let's go next to, you know what? We have a caller from the Philippines. Caller from the Philippines, welcome.
Good morning, David. Well, I have to say that the Philippine election is being chaotic and dirty because I voted for Leni Robredo and Kiko Pangilinan for president and vice president. But as the votes came in, it seemed that they voted for Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte.
Yep.
And you know what they did? They brainwashed them. They are the cult. They're similar to the Republicans in the United States. They are nothing but a cult. So my question to you is, would the return of Marcos affect the relationship between the United States and the Philippines? Because in the 1980s, it has been rocky until Cory Aquino came in and became president of the Philippines. And now, with the return of Marcos, we are on another 6 years of the same old politics of dirty tricks, political dynasties, and of course, vote buying. Do you think it will embolden the Republicans in 2022?
I don't know the answer to that, but you have, by the way, I love the energy. You're shot out of a cannon today, and I love every second of it. And I would be too if I saw that the son of a former authoritarian now is going to be the president of my country. So I sympathize with you completely. In terms of the Biden administration, listen, I don't want the Biden administration being cozy with what in all likelihood is going to be another authoritarian Philippines regime. So that's that. In terms of Republicans, I actually am not sure. The Republican, I don't know what to call it, love for some authoritarians like Putin. For Trump and Putin. I don't know that it will translate to the Philippines in the same way, specifically because I don't think a lot of Republicans have any idea what's happening in the Philippines.
I think the BBM Sara supporters are a cult, similar to the MAGA cult, which they will try to turn the United States into, like us, authoritarian, flawed democracies that will destroy the reputation of the world. And now we are complete laughing stock. And I think Marcos and Duterte are completely unfit for the roles as president and vice president of the Philippines.
What do you plan to do? What do you plan to do there now?
There will be some uncertainty, but one thing is for sure, David.
Yes.
If Leni Robredo wins again in 2028, make no mistake, 2022 to 2028 Philippines will be dark and bloody because this year will celebrate the 50th anniversary of martial law. And the return of a Marcos Duterte to power would make the Philippines suffer even more, similar to what Trump and Pence did in the United States from 2017 until 2021.
Wow. Well, listen, you've said it all. I wish you the best, and I appreciate the call.
Well, thank you very much, David. And I hope we will meet us again real soon.
Absolutely. What a powerful phone call there from the Philippines, where things are getting very, very, very crazy. And we did cover that on the bonus show earlier this week. Complicated circumstances, that's for sure. Why don't we go next to Nico from New Hampshire? Nico, welcome.
Hi, David. How are you?
I'm doing well.
So, I'm a PhD student in clinical psychology, and naturally I care a great deal about empathy. With the midterm elections on the horizon, my question for you is, why do you think modern politicians refuse to empathize with each other?
Why do they refuse to empathize? I don't know if refuse is necessarily the right word. I mean, I think they don't empathize with each other, but for some of these people, they seem unable to imagine what it would be like to be in the position of someone else. It seems like they're just unable to do it. So I don't know if refuse is the right word.
Yeah, perhaps in the public setting, in the public eye, as opposed to outside of
Well,
that.
I do think that in that sense, there's probably some belief, maybe it's accurate even, that if you empathize with the other side, that you're ceding ground to them rhetorically, so that then all of a sudden you end up backed into a corner. I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking out loud. I can understand how they might think that.
Okay, yeah, I was kind of having a similar mindset in that it kind of a fear of looking weak or conceding. So I agree with that. Another question is why do you think seemingly basic amounts of empathy that you'd think would be within all people, which I'd like to think is common, they're not reflected in our laws?
Can you give me an example of that?
Well, we could look at the abortion laws at this moment, and that would go on to a context of, morality, and that's a whole other discussion. But in reality, of wanting to help others, seeing that people are struggling in certain areas, and that's not prioritized in our law.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the case in some of these anti-abortion states, but so you're saying there are state level abortion laws that show no empathy.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think that's the way that they're designed. You've got people writing these laws who have a very black, white, or sometimes religiously oriented view about abortion. And what you and I would call empathy, they might call sin or immorality. And so if that, you're not going to willingly put that stuff into a law.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering those questions. Have a good rest of your day.
All right. And that was Nico from New Haven. I incorrectly said New Hampshire, but that was Nico from New Haven. Let's take a very quick break. If you're holding, don't hang up, because we're going right back to the phones in a moment. If you value what we do at the David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind the scenes videos, the daily bonus show, the commercial-free daily show, as well as special discounts on merch, including hats, hoodies, mugs, and t-shirts. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Let's hear from a few more people. We do our calls via Discord. You can join the Discord for free at davidpakman.com/Discord. Let's go next to Ben from Texas. Ben, you're on the air. Ben from Texas, you're on the air. And Ben from Texas,
Hi,
there you
can
are.
you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. Just to the callers, they're asking what Joe Biden can do if we don't win the midterms for abortion. I was thinking along the lines, can Joe Biden do something to the effect of withholding federal aid to states that limit abortions past the 3 months or before the 3 months?
That's a great question. It's an empirical question that I just don't have the answer to in front of me. Could he withhold federal aid? You're just saying stop all federal aid to states that ban abortion before 3 months.
Well, not all federal aid. Something that doesn't really affect the everyday lives of people, but can definitely hit the wallets of the states, of the state governments.
See, the
like
tough
highways.
thing about that is, even if let's assume that he could do it, it probably will hurt the people of the states regardless. I think that that's a reality. I don't know how you withhold money from states and say, we're going to withhold the money, but it's not going to do anything bad to anybody. Well, that seems unlikely.
Right. And then, I'm from Texas. I'm where this 6-month abortion ban has already taken place. I work
6 month or
I'm a
6
social
week?
worker.
6 month or 6 week?
6 weeks. I'm sorry.
Got it.
I'm a social worker. I've seen the effects that our draconian sexual education has had on people. Our foster care is just in absolute shambles. It's overwhelmed, underfunded. This is just it's insane to me that we're limiting women's access to healthcare right now
Do you
when they're
think
not
about
doing
leaving the
justice.
state of Texas over what's going on?
Personally, I have reasons that I cannot, but if I didn't have those personal connections here in Texas, I would definitely be looking to leave.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, most people have connections where they live. That's kind of the reality. That's why this whole if you don't like it, just move thing is very absurd.
Yeah, and then just one other thing, I don't know how much y'all have talked about it, but Mayra Flores, there's a runoff election going on down here, because our congressman, Philemon Vela, is taking an early retirement to be a lobbyist, and this is a district. I live in South Texas, the Rio Grande Valley. This area has been a strong blue for about 40 years. And right now it's looking like the Republicans are going to be taking over this congressional district.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we can get the word out that this candidate Mayra Flores, she's another Lauren Boebert kind of deal.
Oh boy. I have not been following that one. I have not been following that one, but we will look into it.
Yeah, she's definitely a threat to look out for.
All right, Ben from Texas, thank you for the very informative call.
Thank you, David.
All right, Ben on a slight delay there with us. I don't know what was the cause of that. I don't know the oranges of that. Let's go to Henry from Spokane, Washington.
I follow politics like pretty well. I'd say a little bit better than the average American. I've never heard of Jamie Raskin. I was just curious, like how feasible it is for someone who doesn't have a national appeal, or people don't know him nationally, to actually win the presidency, and like what different moves that would take. Like how possible is that?
Yeah, I mean, you ask 10 people, they'll give you 10 different opinions. Lots of people don't have a national presence until they do. And sometimes running for president is what causes that. I mean, Sarah Palin was virtually unknown. And by virtue of being selected by John McCain, she became a household name. So for me, as I've said before, I like Jamie Raskin is one possibility of someone I would like if Joe Biden doesn't run for reelection. One of the things about him that I think would be a problem is a lot of people won't vote for a Jewish guy. I think that the name recognition he can overcome by becoming more well-known, and that could happen. But I think that he might be too progressive for some voters. I think the Judaism will be a problem for some people. So the name recognition, I'm not worried about, to be honest.
Okay. Thank you.
My pleasure. There's Henry from Spokane with a very pithy and concise question, which I'm glad I was able to answer. Let's go to Tavish from India. Tavish, welcome. What part of India are you from?
I'm from a town called Pondicherry.
Which region is that?
It's in southern India. It was colonized by the French.
Oh, okay.
You should look into it, actually.
I should. That sounds interesting. Is the cuisine more French?
Nothing particular like that, but there are French cafes and stuff.
Oh, all right.
What you might find interesting is that there was like a Tintin story that was based over here as well.
A Tintin store. That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what's on your mind today?
I want to ask you what your thoughts are on immigration, like, because a lot of right-wingers accuse the left of being open borders and like just free-flowing immigration. So do you think that like there should be some limit on immigration, or do you think that it should be an easy process, or what exactly do you think?
Yeah. I mean, listen, my position on this is not unique to the United States. Countries have every right and responsibility to set immigration policy. They have every right and responsibility to enforce the fact that they have borders and to establish what is the path to citizenship and how many years or what would be disqualifying factors. Absolutely, of course, that should happen. Where I think the problems include what right wingers want to do in terms of using immigration to, as some of them want to do it, allow in only white people or mostly white people to have these xenophobic and racist quota systems to use immigration as a political tool in order to try to shape the electorate in a way that you believe is advantageous to you. The idea of deporting individuals who were brought here as kids by undocumented parents through no fault of their own, that's completely immoral and wrong to do. So they should get a path to citizenship. But of course, yeah, countries can have immigration policy. They can say, here's the amount of immigration that we can have. And of course, I have not actually even met anyone who is like actually an open borders person.
Yeah, because like there are a few leftists I've seen they want to restrict immigration because they believe that it depresses wages and things like that. So I do believe there is some truth to why they want to restrict immigration. But I see that like there is a bit of xenophobia, which is that they want to preserve America as an Anglo-Saxon white nation. Is there any truth to that?
Is there any truth to which part?
To like actually both, like that the left doesn't want immigration because of economic reasons and the right doesn't want it because of cultural reasons.
There's truth there, of course, there is truth to both of those things. On the wages, the truth is that the degree to which immigration influences wages is very, very modest. This has been studied extensively, and we have a long form piece about it on our YouTube channel. And I also there's a couple of books on my reading list. If you go to davidpakman.com/economics, I have a list of economics books that I recommend, and several of them deal with this issue of immigration and wages. It has almost no impact, and much more of an impact is from corporations that are willing to illegally hire undocumented workers. That depresses wages much more than actual legal immigrants coming in.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for taking the question.
My pleasure. There's Tavish from India. I'm going to have to research that French part of India. That's very, very interesting. Why don't we speak next to, I don't know. Why don't we go to our friend Bitdefender from Cancun? Bitdefender, welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me just fine?
Yes.
Hey, dude. I was listening to an episode of yours earlier this week with Mr. Coleman Hughes. And you mentioned this idea in which people have to play dirty to move forward. You know how in certain circumstances we have to bend or break the rules.
Yeah, I didn't.
To get something done.
To be clear, what I said was, there are people who argue that to achieve real change, you have to play dirty and break rules. I wasn't necessarily asserting it myself on any particular issue, but I was proposing it as a thought element for the conversation.
Yes, exactly. And I know you don't necessarily espouse that idea.
Okay.
And I wanted to expound a little bit on why you wouldn't want to espouse that, because I don't think you mentioned it in depth in that segment. But ultimately, it all boils down to, it is precisely this attitude which allows, while we may say, well, we're doing some maniacal evil for a greater good, the same logic gets perverted to, defend a greater good for myself in exchange for a greater hurt for the rest of the world, I guess.
Let me see if I understand what you're saying. Let me see if I can summarize what you're saying. You're saying the problem with justifying breaking rules or laws in order to achieve a particular outcome, if you evaluate that the outcome is worthwhile, is that once you open that door, next thing you know, you're saying, well, maybe murder is okay to justify a good outcome, or maybe raping and pillaging of an entire village or whatever. You're saying that it's a slippery slope of sorts. Once we say, well, you can decide whether these are laws that should be broken to achieve a goal, you've kind of entered an area that lends itself to all sorts of different justifications.
Yes, that's exactly right. And the problem is precisely more than the slippery slope argument. It's more of a, well, they are willing to play the long game and take tiny steps to achieve those goals, while we are usually, we have a mind of we need to make big changes for the world to be a better place.
That's an
And,
interesting idea. Yeah. I mean, the problem is that there really are sometimes laws that are unjust. And I'm not talking about murder, right? But there are sometimes laws that are unjust when it comes to protesting or being heard in different ways, that type of thing. So I think that's the difficulty of it. Bitdefender, I have to ask, where are you calling from? Because not only are you echoey, there was like a speakerphone announcement a couple minutes ago.
I'm so sorry. It's just part of the job in a police station, you know.
Oh, you're in a
Things
police
happen.
station. Wow.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry
I'll
about
have
that.
to
But yeah,
visit
that's
next
basically
time
it.
I'm in Cancun. I'll have to visit the police station and see what you're up to.
The tourism police station, particularly. Yeah.
Tourism
You're
police
free to
station.
come anytime.
Beautiful. All right, Bitdefender, thank you for the call.
Thank you, David.
All right, there's Bitdefender from Mexico. Always great to hear from him. Let's go next to Alex from Baltimore. Alex, go.
Hey, David, can you hear me?
I can, although something's up with the connection, but let's see if we can struggle through it.
Alrighty.
Okay.
How about now? Is that better?
That's dramatically better.
Okay, I just turned. Okay, and I also wanted to mention that I am in a quiet room inside, so we shouldn't have any loud annoyances outside.
Have you treated the walls with acoustic foam?
I don't know if they did or not, but
Okay.
they might have.
Fair.
Anyway,
Fair.
okay, so I want to get you to analyze my take on Medicare for all on a state level. With the stories coming out of California, I live in Maryland. The last governor's race, the Democrat was very progressive, ran on Medicare for a single payer in the state of Maryland.
Okay.
And I was a little hesitant on it because on the state level, the funding mechanism is a better question to ask because, you know, they can't just print money and balanced budgets actually matter.
Yep.
And Maryland is such a small geographical state. Like, I think you can be outside this state within 30 miles, no matter where you live. And I think it's more of a reasonable argument to say all the people with means that you're going to try to get funding for can just move to Pennsylvania, Virginia, Delaware. So I was a little hesitant to go with it on the state level. Is that a decent take, do you think? Or am I missing something?
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. You're saying, is it a problem for state level Medicare for all that people can move into the state from elsewhere?
No, that because you have to raise funds for state for Medicare for all.
Yes.
And a lot of people aren't going to be happy with having higher taxes, even if it's cheaper in the long run.
Okay.
And in Maryland, you could move across the border to Pennsylvania and not have to pay those taxes. So you would lose a funding mechanism.
Well, but if you require people to be residents to have to participate in the program, then don't you solve that issue?
I suppose, but I guess my thought was if you have an influx of people moving out to avoid it, then it's harder to raise funds for it.
Yeah, but I think that problem, I don't think that's really a big thing, because if a state sets up state Medicare for all, they say, okay, here's the way it works. In order to have this single payer system cover you, you've got to be a resident. That's it. You've got to be a resident. So if people from another state that doesn't have the system come in, they can still be seen at hospitals, but they have to bring insurance that they have just like they do now. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess I see what you're saying.
So you can solve that. That's a solvable problem.
All right, fair enough. And I know you're at the end. Ooh, quick question. What is your favorite adult beverage?
My favorite adult beverage? I don't know. I'm partial to sort of like wheat and white beers.
Craft beer guy.
Yeah.
Well, you should definitely, if you're ever in Baltimore, we have lots of good craft beers you could check out.
Not IPAs, I hope, right?
They run the gamut. There are a bunch of IPAs, but there's lots of other stuff too.
I don't want any IPAs anywhere near me. That's my only thing.
I actually agree with you. There are some that I think are okay, but no, I'm more of a lager. I actually like dark beers now more than I used to. But anyways, all right. Thanks for taking my call.
All right. Thank you for the call. And what a beautiful note on which we can end today. I'm always devastated that I can't get to everyone who calls in, but we will take calls again, and I hope to hear from you next time. We'll take a quick break and be right back. Follow us on social media. Interact with the David Pakman Show community. See exclusive content. See when we're taking calls live. And stay up to date on other big show announcements. We post daily. Find us on Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, and TikTok. Let's go to this week's mailbag. Always glad to get emails and messages from people. Mostly glad anyway. Not, I guess I can't say always, but generally speaking. You can email info@davidpakman.com if you have something to say. Keep it polite, keep it quick, keep it substantive, and many things this week meeting those requirements. Not all. Let's start with a couple of wackier messages. No BS wrote in and said, without any evidence, I should add, you were paid by the DEMA rats to spread disinformation and lies with no shame. No wonder you come from one of the most corrupt countries in the world. That's a reference to Argentina. Argentina is very corrupt. That's true. You lied and lied since 2016. It started with Trump Russia. When it was proven recently it was all a hoax. That's not true. You didn't even admit it. Satan is all over you, but Judgment Day will come. I don't care about your religious nonsense, but prove I'm paid by the Democrats. Most of these are not even empirical statements. We can't even, Satan will one day unleash Judgment Day upon me. Neither one of us will ever know that. But there's a specific claim that I'm paid by the DEMA rats. Let's assume they mean the Democrats. Prove it. Prove it. I would encourage, every day, David, you're paid by the Democrats. David, you're paid by George Soros. You guys know about that, right? Prove it is my request to you. Thank you very much. Jason wrote in and said, your show sucks ass. The little remarks you make during a Trump rally are idiotic. You chime in on the tiniest things Trump says, but the big facts you completely ignore. Shut up and listen, and don't interrupt. Perhaps you just shouldn't cover his rallies. Studder. You're a tiny little man that hides behind a microphone. You should try maybe play-by-play for the NHL maybe. Oh, I would love to do that. Thank you. No, it's a completely unhinged message at first. I don't know if you're making fun of me for a stutter I don't have, or I know lots of people on the right have been making fun of Joe Biden for having a stutter. I don't know anything about the stutter part, but I would be totally up for doing some sports play-by-play. I think it would be an incredible thing to learn. And Jason, listen, if you can help get me in, I would love to do that on the weekends. Brett wrote in about Tulsi Gabbard and says Tulsi maintains that the leaker was trying to interfere with the normal Supreme Court process. Isn't that the same as what the peaceful protesters were trying to do on January 6th? Right. Well, no, because you have to remember, Brett, the January 6th protesters just wanted to make sure there was no fraud. They wanted to prevent the election from being certified, but that would have been wrong then or something. And then the Supreme Court leaker was doing something wrong, even though no crime was committed there, but 700 people have been accused of crimes related to the Trump riots. Don't worry about any of that, Brett. Just listen to Tulsi. She'll always tell you the truth, I'm sure. I got a message about my interest rate segment, which said, Pete wrote in and said, you said to let you know if the interest rate hike segment was useful. And I just wanted to say it was very useful. CNN and MSNBC haven't explained it that straightforward. Please keep educating us. You're good at explaining things. Thank you, Pete. Well, I really appreciate that. And like I said, those segments, almost no one watches them, but I enjoy doing them. And the people that do watch them seem to get a lot out of them. So we'll keep doing it. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Let's go to our next email. This one is from John about strengthening the dollar. John says, David, sir, I had a quick question about strengthen the dollar. I'm a union member and recently had a conversation with an older woman that's also a union member. And she mentioned the phrase strengthen the dollar, which I honestly am not 100% sure what that means. But I told her, so if you work the next 6 months straight with our wages, how does that affect you personally? And she had that deer in the headlights look on her face. Literally, her eyebrows went up. Quite funny because she looked so shocked, then didn't have an answer. Literally said she didn't know. Funny thing is, I don't really know the significance of that either. I've just learned to ask why. I also have a friend in his mid-40s. During a conversation, he said something about Biden weakening the dollar. Now, this friend is on disability and doesn't work. So I asked him, why does that matter to you? No offense, but you're on disability, and I'm pretty sure you'll be fine. Yes, that is generally true. And I don't honestly know about that either, but I also don't think it would. But he said the same thing, a pause, and then I don't know. So, okay, here's the deal with the strength of the dollar stuff. As a general principle, when people say a stronger dollar, they mean the dollar is worth more relative to other currencies. So there's a crazy situation right now where the dollar nominally is now worth more, it's almost equivalent to the euro. The value of the dollar has increased significantly over the last year and a half relative to the euro. So number one is a lot of people who talk about strengthening the dollar don't even really know how it would help them. The way it would help is it would make imports relatively less expensive, all else being equal. Okay. The funniest part is a lot of the people saying strengthen the dollar don't know that the dollar is much stronger now than it has been in a while. And I'm not even saying Biden gets the credit for that. I'm just saying it is. And many people extraordinarily confused. So, John, you did a great thing, which is you asked specific questions. How would that affect you? And they don't know. That doesn't mean it wouldn't affect them. They just have no idea why, which is basically just as funny. Douglas wrote in about refuting election conspiracy theorists and said, many Republican candidates you interview assert that the election was stolen. None are ever specific on how such a conspiracy could have been carried out in multiple states. 1, who directed the conspiracy? 2, how many people were involved and at what levels? 3, why have there been no whistleblowers? Well, they would say that there have been. They would say the affidavits are whistleblowers. Instead, they gish gallop and regurgitate Mike Pillow's talking points about how many votes were stolen in what states. Can you please hold their feet to the fire about the specifics of the conspiracy itself? I'm going to try to do a better job on that. These are all good questions. What you have to remember is it's really common to come across something like this and think this is bulletproof. When they start spouting, you just say, who directed it? How many people were involved? And why have there been no whistleblowers? And they will tell you with a straight face, we don't even know the full scope of who directed it, but it was Democrats as well as Antifa, whatever. They'll have an answer. And when you say how many people were involved, they'll say it could be thousands of people. And then you'll say, well, why have there been no whistleblowers? And they'll say there have been. Look at all of the affidavits that were brought forward. And then you have to say, well, but affidavits aren't evidence in a strict sense. And you're in the weeds. So never underestimate their ability to put you in the weeds, no matter what sort of refutation you offer. Coop wrote in and said, hey, David, sorry, buddy, but the facial hair isn't a good look for you. My opinion only, so take it for what it's worth. I will, Coop. Thank you. I'm going to take it for nothing. That's how much it's worth to me. This is not a big deal, guys. Climate change, invasion of Ukraine, Roe v. Wade overturned, weaponized Trumpism. My facial hair is very, very low on the list of priorities. But Coop does say, keep up the good work, which I appreciate. I appreciate that. Thank you. Dan wrote in and said, cultural Marxists? I love this with the question mark. It's great. David, greatly appreciate your work and was wondering if I could get your thoughts on the cultural Marxists phrase that gets thrown around by the right. Even a British conservative politician used it recently. It seems interchangeable with postmodernism, woke mob, political correctness, critical race theory, and it possibly means little, but it's just a scary term the right uses to reference something bad. I'd be interested in your help. Many thanks, Dan. Yes, so cultural Marxism is another right-wing conspiracy theory. It has a bit of an anti-Semitic twist. The idea is that cultural Marxism is a philosophy or worldview that will wreck and destroy American culture and American morality as right-wingers see it. Cultural Marxism can be thought of as a sort of political correctness on steroids. It's an assault on the American way of life. Now, in its original form, the idea here is that there's a group of Jewish philosophers who fled Germany in the 1930s, went to teach at Columbia University, and came up with this form of Marxism that is focused on American culture. You might think, well, Marxism is an economic philosophy or a political philosophy. No, the idea is these Jewish individuals who fled Germany in the World War II era came to the US and said, we are going to use Marxism on American culture. And that's the kind of anti-Semitic element, which oftentimes the people talking about cultural Marxism are also very suspicious and concerned about the role of Jews in American culture. And it's what it means today to people who even know what they mean by it, and some of them don't. They mean that Jewish Marxists or left-wing Marxists are going to invade American culture by taking over media systems, education, schools, universities, etc., and do bad things, and it's all going to be terrible. Is more or less the gist of it. So that's cultural Marxism. You can essentially, I mean, listen, I'm not saying ignore everything anyone says when they use the phrase cultural Marxism, but when someone says cultural Marxism unironically, it should definitely be a red flag for you that you should really carefully scrutinize everything that this person is saying. Send in your emails if you'd like to be featured next week. info@davidpakman.com. Monday, May 30th, we'll be doing a one-day membership special to commemorate Memorial Day. You can get on our newsletter at davidpakman.com. And then Monday, Memorial Day, you'll get an email telling you how to take advantage of this great membership special. We will see you on the bonus show today.